again, everybody. I am Benjamin Parker. We are joined by Simon Shortt, Robertson Byer. Thank you for being with us tonight. No matter where you're watching from, you may be connected to Fantom Sports or Sports and Money, but we appreciate you being with us tonight. We are covering the NFC South. So we'll be talking about the Buccaneers, the Saints, the Falcons, the Panthers, and kind of a way too early prediction series. Still a lot of things that could happen and a lot more analytics that can go into it, which we will do all through the offseason. But Simon and Robertson, privileged to have you on board. Robertson, how are you tonight?
Doing great. Excited to get started.
Exactly. Simon, good to have you on board, man. How you doing, man?
Appreciate it, Ben. Doing good, my man. Doing good. Ready to do it.
All right. Well, let's just jump right in to the team and the man, Buccaneers, Tom Brady. Simon, on a scale of 1 to 10 or 1 to 100, however you want to put it, how surprised are you that Tom Brady is back and that he appears fully poised to come back and fight for another title?
Yeah, not surprised at all. I mean, honestly, when the season ended last year, it felt pretty 50-50 if he would come back or not. But to me, the way the retirement got announced is the reason he's back. He did not get to control the narrative. It was Schefter tweeted it. He sent out a lame Instagram post. This guy just did a 10-episode docuseries about himself through the NFL season. You think he wanted his retirement announced, in a tweet? Nah, he had something planned for that. So he's back. He's going to be great. He's going to do his thing. This team is still, the Bucks immediately stayed in win now mode. They re-signed a bunch of players. They made a couple trades. So surprised? Nope, not really. And the only thing that I guess would be surprising was, it only took him 3 weeks at home to be like, nah, I'm done with this. I gotta get going, guys. I'll see you later.
I'm convinced that Gisele Bundchen is maybe the most powerful woman in the NFL, and yet even she couldn't keep Tom at home for longer than 3 or 4 weeks. It's a fascinating study. You go back about 12 years. Brady, after his rookie contract, was not giving discounts to the Patriots during those, that second series. But after he married Gisele, he starts handing out discounts to the Patriots every single season. And now they've got some extra money to go get those extra linebackers or running backs or whoever. And it leads to a whole another second round of Super Bowls for the Patriots. But it is fascinating. I think we've already talked about this, Robertson. We expect Tom Brady to be good, but how good can the Buccaneers be this year? I don't think there's any question they're in the playoffs, but are they actually going to walk back into the Super Bowl this year, Robertson?
I don't think they're going to walk through the season like some people might think they're going to be. I think they're going to regress a little bit in the regular season. I don't think Tom Brady is necessarily going to show age as much as some people might think, which I don't know if many people think that, but, just playing devil's advocate here. He is 45 years old. You might logically think that a player would start showing age, but Tom Brady's, he's Tom Brady. He's just never seems to age. But, I think this is a better year for them to get to the Super Bowl just because I don't believe that Aaron Rodgers is going to be all that with the Packers this year. I think they're definitely going to take a step back. But so I think once they get to the playoffs, I think it's going to be a little easier than it was last year for them.
We didn't plan to talk about this, but I got to talk about it. Every team in the NFC that was good last year almost is going to be good this year, but they don't look as good. The Packers, you mentioned it, they lose Devontae Adams, which is, Rodgers' go-to guy. The Buccaneers lose, I think, Ali Marpet, their all-pro or potential all-pro guard every season, plus another piece or two. The Cowboys, I don't think there's any question, took a bit of a step back this year. The Rams lost enough pieces to where I don't think they're quite the super team that, they got labeled as last year. All those top teams, Simon, I'll stick it with you. Is anybody in the NFC going to be any better than they were last year?
Ooh, better. That's a good question. I don't think so. I mean, it feels like it's time for, maybe Green Bay to take that step back in terms of the regular season performance, right? You see this a lot with teams where maybe that regular season takes a bit of a dip because they're trying something new, right? They're not sticking to the formula that gets them bounced every year in the playoffs, right? So there might be a few more bumps in the road. So maybe that's happening this year in Green Bay. They obviously thought offensive coordinator is gone now. So there might be some changes with the offense that they just have to get adjusted to. Probably starting 2 rookies on defense. So that's a good thing there. The Rams, as you mentioned, lose some starters on that defense, lose Andrew Whitworth on that offensive line. How is that number 2 wide receiver with Allen Robinson kind of going to kind of work out this year? I'm with you. I think every team maybe just got a smidge worse, with a couple teams, losing some significant pieces. Obviously, Seattle is, going to be toast this year. We'll see what Dallas looks like. They're due for some regression because of the turnovers on the defensive end that they were able to force. So, yeah, we'll see where everything kind of nets out. And usually when there's an air of mystery, an air of confusion, that's when guys like Tom Brady just kind of reappear and remind everybody of why they are who they are. And, he could very easily, I think like Robert said, maybe not stomp through the regular season and win 14 games, but we could see them be a buzzsaw in the playoffs, I think, for sure.
I think Vegas agrees with you. DraftKings and probably most sports books have them right around that 11.5 number. So again, they were 13-4 last year. Maybe take a bit of a step back in the regular season, and then we'll kind of see who's healthy in the NFC, and maybe who's added a couple of pieces that we didn't expect to have such a big impact in the NFC. A la the Rams, maybe the Eagles at some point. We'll see. It's fascinating stuff. I do want to ask you, because we can't move off of this before we do. Robertson, I'll start with you. Todd Bowles is in. How much of a factor was Tom Brady in all of that, with Bruce Arians being out and Todd Bowles in?
Well, I think it was a big factor. Correct me if I'm wrong here. I'm pretty sure Brady came back after Todd Bowles was named head coach.
I think he came back before, actually. A week, was it a couple of weeks?
It was very close together, and it seems like it seems like the decision that Bowles was going to take the step up was made before the announcement of Brady came back, but I don't think we knew that in the public until after Brady announced he was coming back. So yeah, all a little funny there for sure.
Yeah, I don't think it's a coincidence there. Like it was, I didn't remember when it was, but I knew it was close. So I don't think that's by coincidence. The Tom Brady coming back, the timing of it and all that. I'm sorry, Ben, what was your question?
It's okay. Let me just throw in another one, because we could spend all night on this. How different is the Tom Brady we're looking at right now? Because he was willing to step away from Belichick and step away from the Patriots. And I don't think they make this Bruce Arians, Todd Bowles move without at least getting Tom Brady's opinion, if not more. Now we're seeing the funnier side of Brady. Robertson, how different is this Tom Brady versus the guy we saw all those years in the Patriots?
Well, you finally see a guy that's in command of his team now, versus when he was with the Patriots, he didn't have as much say as a star quarterback in today's league would have. So I think you're going to see a guy that, has a little fun out there, but he's still serious about it. Just kind of, like Simon said with the documentary and all that, he has control over what, he does and all that. Him and Byron Leftwich, they seem to have a good relationship. So I think you're going to see, a Tom Brady that's still focused on winning, obviously getting to the Super Bowl before, time runs out on him. But I think he's going to play a little bit more loose.
I remember seeing Tom Brady, and I can't remember if it was Twitter or Instagram, but I remember the first time I saw it a few months ago for myself. I was like, well, that's a fake. Tom Brady doesn't do stuff like that. But then, every day or every week, he just keeps putting out new stuff of himself doing something that's either funny or interesting or, we're not used to seeing this. Simon, do you like this side of Brady?
No, I'm a Steeler fan, so whatever. I don't want to hear from that guy. No, but I mean, obviously, it's nice to see when people you think are robots, right, or are just like huge celebrities, right? When you get to see that human side of them. So from the standpoint of like, it's nice to see that there is a human behind that. You always like that as a fan, right? And to see it that he's like maybe finally enjoying it, right? Because there were stories when he was in New England that he kind of took on that Belichick persona, whereas like guys crying at their locker when they just won the AFC Championship game. He would say, "Why are you crying? We have one more game to win," and just like completely like unemotional, Terminator type of mentality. And now he's out there, throwing the Super Bowl trophy drunk off a boat in a lake, and it's like that. Not a lake, it's Tampa, whatever, Bay. That's cool. So yeah, it is a lot of fun. I mean, every time I see it, I kind of roll my eyes, and it just gives me a new thing to not necessarily be a sports fan of, but as a person, yeah, it's cool to see him enjoy it and loosen up a little bit.
As a fan of any other NFL team, I think you maintain the right to enjoy Brady's comedy, but still either hate / roll your eyes at him because of all that came before that. You just can't forget all of that, especially if you're a Ravens or Colts or Steelers fan. Hey, you just can't forget all that stuff that guy did, right? I mean, it's just not going away.
A lot of pain deep back there. I can't just, just let it go. That's not me.
We're getting off the rails here, but this is good stuff. I'm gonna call out 3 names to you: Bill Belichick, Greg Popovich, and Bobby Knight. All 3 of those guys, I think if you caught them in a private moment and just let them talk about their sport, it would be and is endlessly fascinating. But we are so used to seeing those guys with a microphone in front of their face from a person that they probably hate and despise. And you just kind of either get the door shut in your face, like with Belichick, or you get something mean and ugly that you get from Popovich and from Bobby Knight for all those years. You really don't get to enjoy that other side of that person who's actually very interesting, very intelligent, very knowledgeable, and has a lot of jokes and stuff. You don't get to enjoy any of that because, especially if you're up in the Boston area, some of those writers are just in your face all day and going home and writing about you something negative every week. So, Robertson, anybody else like that in sports that you wish that you could see another side of?
That's a tough one there, Ben. I wish Aaron Rodgers would be like less of himself.
Right.
I'm kind of like flipping it there. I wish Aaron Rodgers would be less of himself, or like don't go back and forth on it. Like either be like the loose fun guy, or just don't be like the arrogant prick.
Right.
Like can you pick? I mean, we don't need both of them really. I'd rather see less of Aaron Rodgers. Really, I just kind of flipped it on you there, but I'd rather see less of that if I'm being perfectly honest.
That is fascinating. Just we would like to see Aaron Rodgers get a little bit more serious, win a couple more Super Bowls, as opposed to kind of driving them out of both lanes. All right, let's get the train back on the tracks here for a second. Brings us to the Saints, 9-8 last year. They looked like they were headed for maybe making a dent in the playoffs with Jameis Winston until he went down with an injury. And it pretty much not devastated their season, but it certainly changed the course of what they were looking at possibly doing. Winston is back. They've added a wide receiver in the draft. I can't remember his name right off the bat, but they've added a couple of other pieces. In spite of all that crazy salary cap stuff that they will continue to deal with for the next couple of seasons, they have managed to put together a decent team. And yet, Vegas has the over-under at 8. Which is actually a losing record. So, Simon, how do you feel about all of that?
So, I think when we were doing these sort of previews before the draft, the NFC South was probably the most confusing team where we didn't know who was tanking. Well, I guess tanking. Well, yeah, it happens. But who was rebuilding, who was retooling, who was trying to win now. And I think when we came out of the draft, we can comfortably say this team is trying to win games. They think they're still a playoff contending team, and I don't see a reason why they shouldn't be. So I think if the over-under is at 8, I'm going to take the over and see if they can get back to 9 wins again, or maybe if Jameis Winston is healthy, can they even get to 10? Sean Payton, obviously, not being there, you don't know what that drop off could mean for Winston. But you would hope he's learned enough in his couple years in New Orleans now that he's kind of ready to go and just be that like steady, consistent, week in, week out kind of quarterback. The defense should obviously still hold up, but with Dennis Allen still being in town as the head coach now. And in theory, this team was thrown a Marquez Callaway last year and not much else in terms of wide receivers. And now hopefully they get Michael Thomas back. Schefter tweeted the other day that he should be set for training camp. They get Chris Olave in the draft. So everything's kind of pointing to this team trying to still be competitive. So I think they could definitely get to 9 or even 10 wins.
Robertson, talk about that with me, because they were 9-8 last year, looked a whole lot better before Winston goes down. Winston is back. It looks like they improved the roster. The NFC isn't particularly overwhelming in any way. The NFC South is even less overwhelming when you look at the Falcons and the Patriots sitting there. And yet DraftKings and the other sports books kind of have them around that 8.5 win mark. How do you feel about that, Robertson?
As far as terms and standings in their division, I definitely think they're going to finish second. I think they can get a wild card spot in the NFC just because of the roster's too good. I would like to think they have Michael Thomas coming back to pair with Chris Olave. They still have Alvin Kamara. They added Marcus May in free agency, a couple other pieces. You have to like it. And if Jameis Winston, I'm not a big believer in him personally. But their backup is Andy Dalton. Just say that Jameis Winston project doesn't work out. They do have Andy Dalton. I'm not a big fan of his either, but he is a steady hand. He has proven that he can get his team to the playoffs. So, I think they have a roster that they can succeed around. It really is just going to depend on Jameis. I think the team goes as far as he takes them.
I'm inclined to agree with both of you here. I don't like going against Vegas ever, but the 8.5 seems light. It would not surprise me at all in this season for them to get up to 10-7 record in this division, in this conference, and for them to pick up a playoff spot. Now, do I like them at 23 and 24? Not especially. But for this season, the way it looks, it's kind of shaking out. Wouldn't surprise me at all for them to be, 9-10 wins and picking up a playoff spot here. It drops off quickly after that. The Falcons were 7-10 last year, and they are nothing like the team that went 7-10 last year. Not even sure that it should have gotten 7 wins last year. Vegas has the over-under at 5. Robertson, let's stick with you for a bit here. How good or how bad can the Falcons be this year?
I don't really know. They're kind of a mess. I mean, they added some nice pieces. They added Drake London in the draft, which I like. I like Drake London. And they have Marcus Mariota now, but can he even get the job out of camp versus Desmond Ridder? That still remains to be seen. I really like Desmond Ridder, but is he NFL ready though? Is the question. I think the talent's undeniable. But you can say the same about Mariota when he came out. The talent there is undeniable. He just hasn't necessarily proven it yet in a starting role for a sustained period of time. Their offensive line needs a lot of work. Their defense is still probably a mess. It's probably still going to be a mess this year too. So I'm not really expecting much. I'd probably take the under for them just because I think Ridder is going to be playing most of the year. And while I don't think he's going to play terribly, he's still a rookie quarterback. He's still going to be learning. He's still very raw. So I'm not very high on the Falcons this year.
Simon, it's very interesting. You go back, 5, 6 years now, 7 years maybe. The huge question in the draft was Winston or Mariota. Ultimately, I think the answer was kind of neither, but here they are, both guys maybe getting starting jobs here in the NFC South. Could actually play each other twice this year. But Robertson mentioned it. The one thing standing in the way of that is Cincinnati Bearcat quarterback Desmond Ridder. Simon, I know you're high on Desmond Ridder as well. What do you think happens there at quarterback for the Falcons?
I think Mariota ends up starting the season. I think when you take a guy in the third round in Desmond Ridder, there's no pressure at all. So when the team is as kind of barren for talent as this team is, why throw them into a situation right at the beginning of the year before you really know what you have? Now, I think they actually have some interesting pieces. I would have gone a different way in the first round with that Drake London pick, just because I feel when you start with you have so many holes. I don't know how much a receiver helps you when in 4 years you're gonna have to pay that guy, and we're seeing an NFL trend where you don't pay them. But it's also not a bad situation. It's a veteran offensive line that played together. I think only 2 missed games out of the whole offensive line last year. I think 2 guys each missed a game, and they're veteran. They're pretty good. So that's a decent situation. You've got Pitts, you've got London, you've got Cordarrelle Patterson back. So that's a decent offense if you want to put Ritter back in and throw him into that situation. But the defense is also kind of in a struggle zone right now. I don't know if you want to set him up that way, but I think with the deal you gave Mariota, it would not hurt your team, and it would not be a bad decision to maybe at some point get Ritter, whether it's after the bye week or after the team's officially been eliminated. I think we see him at some point, just not right away.
All good stuff there. Most of these lines that we're seeing are very tight to me. It's hard to pick the over-under in some of these cases. For me, I'm taking the under on the Falcons. I think they compete for one of the worst teams in the NFL this year. You both already mentioned it. There are holes everywhere on this roster. There's some hope for the future too, but there's a lot of holes. There's a lot of youth. There's a lot of we don't know what we're going to get. I think the Falcons maybe finish 3-14 this year. I think it's a long road for the Falcons, even on the NFC side of things. The last team in the division, the Panthers, 5-12. Simon, I'm going to stick with you, and we're going to stick with the quarterback position. They didn't do what a lot of people thought they were going to do with that 6th pick, and that is take either Malik Willis, which most people thought, or maybe even Kenny Pickett. They didn't either. They got a good guy there with Ekwonu, but let's talk about quarterback. Why not take a quarterback? And what does that mean for the head coach, Matt Rule, moving forward through this season?
I actually give them a lot of credit for taking Ike Ekwonu there at 6. I think if he had been off the board by then, if he got taken in the top 5, I don't know if an Evan Neal or Charles Cross would have been a high enough value for them to take at 6 and not take a quarterback. So very interesting sliding doors moment. Had Icky gone in those first 5 picks, would they have done it? But you have to give them credit for what they did do, not what they might have done. So I give them a lot of credit for doing that. And I actually give Matt Rule a lot of credit for that. Now, was it maybe not his decision? Was that maybe from ownership and front office that said, hey, man, you're going to be out of here soon anyways. We're taking the franchise tackle or worst case, an all-pro level guard. And you can kind of deal with it. Either way, credit to whoever made that decision. And if it was Rule, then I actually think that's the way you try to keep your job, because you're going to show the most improvement by taking an offensive lineman like that. So good on them. All that said, the quarterback situation is pretty gross. Darnold and Corral is there. It's a thing. I don't love Corral. I especially don't love him for this team. So I'm just sitting here wondering why Baker Mayfield and why Jimmy Garoppolo are still on their respective teams, and one of them isn't packing their bags for Carolina yet. That's where I'm at. But in terms of the draft and Ekwonu, and then what they did with their limited picks the rest of the way, good on them for good draft process. But yeah, the quarterback situation in Carolina is pretty gross right now.
Excellent analysis, and I like the sliding door analogy. That's very good, very fitting here for the top end of that draft. Panthers, Robertson. The line is at 6, over under. They finished 5-12 last year. I'm not necessarily sure, other than the Ekwonu pick, how you say that they actually got better for next year, maybe better for the future. But what do you think? Do you think they can actually cross that 6-win mark for this season?
Not unless Darnold or Corral catch lightning in a bottle. I mean, it's just hard to see. Even though the NFC isn't, like as we've been discussing, isn't as powerful, especially as the AFC is, it's just hard to see. There's just so many holes. Is Christian McCaffrey, yeah, he's an impact player. Is he going to come back healthy? Is he going to stay healthy? Is he even going to be a factor because they're going to be so much down in games? They can't even run the ball as much as they want. And I know he's an impactful as receiver, but it's still I just don't see it. I don't even see 5 wins. I barely see 4 wins. I think the Falcons and the Panthers are going to be the bottom feeders and probably in the league.
Yeah, I think you're not wrong. Is there some world, some universe in which the Panthers get to 6 wins? Yeah, there is, but I don't think it's very likely. There's no way I would personally take the over on this, at least not for this year. I think it's going to be a long season in Carolina. I'm not totally sure that they have a game plan. The game plan may just be, let's get through this season, let's fire Matt Rule, and then let's kind of start all over again with a couple of decent pieces that they do have on the team. So we'll see. I think we're all in agreement. The Buccaneers finished first. The Saints have a chance at the playoffs here, and then the Falcons and the Panthers are kind of somewhere down at the bottom of the entire league, really. Simon, anything different on the order there of the division?
No, that's the way I have it. I think I'm a little more bullish on Atlanta, but so I have them at a comfortable 3. I think, if we say the Saints, let's say 10 wins, just to be a little optimistic. For Carolina, I'm with Robertson. I think that's a 3 or 4 win team. I think Atlanta might be in that 6 wins, is kind of where I put them. So just over their over under. So I have them at a comfortable 3 at least. I think they're better enough than Carolina, but I think they're a significant step or 2 back of the Saints.
Actually, very interesting. Robertson, anything different there? How do you feel about the order finish there for the 4 teams?
No, I agree. I am more bullish on the Falcons. I think something to keep an eye on is I think they missed an opportunity, the Panthers, that is, to trade Christian McCaffrey, which is hard to do given his injury history, given the contract. But don't be surprised if you see it sometime early on in the season or like closer to the midway point where he's proven that, he's back to being the same guy. And, a contender reaches out to him. They trade him for I don't even know what you can get for a running back, with that kind of contract and the injury history, maybe the second, maybe a third, even at that point in the season. But don't be surprised if, Panthers go full rebuild mode if they're like 0-6, 0-7, and they just start, pushing towards the future.
I think it's a fascinating point. I don't like to get rid of good players unless they have good reasons. And I think Christian McCaffrey is a guy who could serve another team much more usefully than he's serving the Panthers right now. The Panthers do not appear to be going too far upward anytime soon over the next season or two. So we'll see. Robertson, thank you so much for being with us tonight. Simon, thank you so much, man.
Thank you, Ben.
Thanks, Ben.
Everybody watching, thank you so much for being with us. This is Sports and Money. This is Fantom Sports, kind of a collaboration in between the two. We appreciate you guys. We'll see you next time. We got content all over the place, so by all means, check it out. Have a great one. Bye.